In exercise 2 we will look at adding some materials and animation and doing a render. So new material, I'm just going to make up some very basic materials to go onto the scene. So this first material can just have a colour for the floor, so go for a brown tone. Okay, and then we'll add some windows to the scene and apply some glass. So just have a basic colour. Of white, just take it slightly grey to give it some different tone to white actually, and then add some transparency. So taking it down just to about 80 to 85% transparent, and then making it a bit shinier to mimic glass. So now just add in the two cubes, the right dimensions to fit in the window. So I'm just doing this by adding a cube to the scene, changing the dimensions in the bottom right, just using the arrows and pressing down, sliding the mouse up and letting go. And then do a copy and paste over to the other side. So at the moment you can see they're opaque and non-see-through. So what we need to do is just drop that material onto each cube, and we'll call them glass. Okay, then we'll drop brown material onto the floor, and then we'll go into the camera that we earlier placed inside the space. So we can see fairly quickly that those materials have taken effect. To get out of a render at any time, you can press escape. So press escape, and what that does is stop the render and you can move around as normal. So what we'll do now is look at some animation. So add in a couple of cubes, or just add in one cube for a door. So I'm going to put this in place of the door. So I'm just going to cover half of the space that the door is, and make it a lot less thick than it is already. And then I'll halve the thickness of the door, so it's roughly 100 millimeters for me. Again, these aren't to scale, they're just to show how the process is done. The dimensions could be whatever dimensions you want to use. So now I'm going to make this editable, and the reason why I do that is so I can change the axis point that it rotates around. So click Make Editable, then click the second selection. So I'll just rename this door. Then I'm going to click the second selection method, which is just the arrow. So you can see that the block itself, the cube itself, isn't moving, but the arrow is. And I'm going to do a copy and a paste, and click the first one so it's moving the arrow and the door. So the cube is moving, so moving that over, and now go back to just the arrows and move that to the other side. So that's going to act as the hinge, the axis that the hinge and the door will rotate on. Okay, so now adding in a timeline, some keyframes, so turning on record and clicking a keyframe. This is for door number 1. Up to frame 30 and rotate. So I'm just going to rotate it enough to show that it's opened. And click another keyframe. Now I'm going to select door number 2. And again, this needs its own set of keyframes. So back to 0, click a keyframe, move the timeline on, do the action you want it to take at 30, so rotate it round and click another keyframe. So these are both now logged. So if I move the timeline back to forward, you can see that the doors are opening. So now I want to add some keyframes to the camera to move out of the room and turn back around. So starting from frame 30, I've added a keyframe, taking it onto frame 60, moving it out, and I need to put a keyframe there, so hit a keyframe, and now continuing moving it out. So if I just zoom where I can see the whole scene, move the camera out, and I also want to rotate. So go to a view where I can get the horizontal rotate the camera around so you can see the space, and click keyframe. Okay, so that's rotating as we go. Right, so if I press play and click the perspective view, see the doors are opening up to frame 30 and then the camera moves out. Okay, so what we then need to do is create a render. So we go to the render dialog and we need to give it an output. So I'm just going to do a very small resolution, so 320 by 240, and give it a name. Actually, we'll change it to QuickTime Movie. So that's the output. We're going to save it as a QuickTime Movie file and call it Movie 1. So output is 320. We also need to tell it how many frames. So we're going to do all of the frames in the movie. So from 0 to 100. And that's how many frames we're including in this QuickTime Movie file. Okay, so we can close that and click render. So you can see there the file size is very small. So I'll just zoom in a bit. And it will just render away. So this will take some time. So what I'm going to do is press pause on the capture and come back to it in a minute. Here we go. And I'm just opening up the QuickTime file that was on the desktop, and we can see the result of the movie.